So we've got our T500. Let's just run through what we've actually got included with the T500. We've got the boiler and the lid. We've now got a column. We've got the copper one here, and we've also got the option of the stainless steel one as well. But they are both the same in terms of the way they work. So to connect, we unscrew here the lid, the nut, and you'll see in position there's a black O-ring set here. And inside the column, you'll see it is full of the stainless steel saddles. Now at the top of the column, you'll find there are the copper saddles as well. So all we're now going to do is take our lid, put it into position, and put the nut into place. It says I'm going to pull it down a little so that I can see better what I'm doing. And we're just screwing it nicely down, and that should be into position. And on she goes. We're then going to use the 4 clips to attach it. This is really important, you know, the clips, because if we didn't use the clips and it was loosely fitting, the alcohol vapours would escape from between the lid and the actual base, and as opposed to going up through the column. So we'd waste a lot of alcohol that we're using. We've also got 2 other pipes. This one here, and as you can see, most of them actually are labelled with what they actually do. But we've got one type pipe here which connects to the outlet block. This is the outlet block where the water runs through, and that will go back into the waste or back into a bucket if you're going to actually collect the water. So that would go back into a bucket, and you could use that water for making your next wash, or obviously feeding plants in the garden. If you don't want to waste it, I totally understand that. On the top of the column, you have 2 inlet and outlet, and all I'm going to do is connect this tubing to both. This then joins the 2 columns up where the water will run through and feed each side. Get a bit of a dog's dinner at that, aren't I? But hey, here we go. There we go. We're now in position. We've also got on top of that the probe, which goes in here. Now, what I've done with the probe is I've actually just put a little bit of tape around the top of it, because I don't want it dropping in all the way. I only want it to drop in so far. What a lot of people do is they push this probe all the way in. And if you can imagine, we've got water running through here, this L-shaped block to come out. If we push the probe all the way in, it will interfere with that water flow, and it will then mean we can't get a decent temperature reading on the actual outlet water that's coming through. It will be too erratic, and therefore we'll end up with surge boiling and other problems. So it's really quite important to make sure that that isn't pushed in too far. We've also then got the display bracket, which takes the thermometer, and we've got on the back of it says the 2 different measurements for temperature, and we've also got an on and off switch. And that will just click into place here so that we can actually see what's happening. Our 2 remaining outlets, the one at the very bottom here is your water inlet. So the water that we're going to feed the column with will come in through there and connect. And the last one is our alcohol one, which comes out. This is the firm, rigid tubing that goes on the outside there and into place. So that's the T500 setup. Much easier now that we've got the column which is pre-packed at the factory. Every so often we will need to take those out, and we'll need to give them a really good wash. Probably every 5 goes I tend to do it. And depending on the colour of them and the smell and the taste and the look and the everything else, depends on how strong, we do a still cleaner, which obviously you can buy on the website. In the box you will also get a ceramic saddles, and you'll get a distiller's conditioning. Distiller's conditioning, we'll put about 3 capfuls of that into the mix every time we do a wash. The ceramic saddles, they will go in the base and sit on the base. The idea behind these two is firstly the ceramic saddles will prevent surge boiling. What happens is, if you can imagine you've got a stove at home with a pan of milk on, you get all the little bubbles that congregate on the bottom of the pan, they'll join together and create like a little explosion where you end up and the milk shoots up. This will prevent that happening because the same thing can happen inside this boiler. This breaks up all those bubbles on the base. And the distiller's conditioning is an anti-foaming agent, and both of them are quite important. If you don't use them, you can get surge boiling and you can get gushes coming through your T500, which are not clear, they are brown and black. So again, well worth adding those two. The other thing that you'll get with your T500, depending on how far you want to go, and I think we'll deal with this on a separate video, you've got the water flow controller, which is like a pump, and that has its own reservoir. I have done a separate video on that, and it's well worth looking at because that will help to maintain your temperatures. The other one, which is the water flow, just a small stainless steel one, that can connect to a tap. That's a 20mm tap. It can connect to a washing machine fitting, and it has a little needle valve on it. Again, we'll show you that separately. Now, unfortunately, at home, I don't have the facility for that. So I actually have to use one of the fittings that go directly onto a tap. And again, we have these on the website, so if you want to buy these, it's not a problem. We've just changed the copper now for a stainless steel so that you can see both versions in operation. I will go into a little bit of detail about what the difference is between the two of them, but at the moment I'm concentrating on setup. So we've now got, as I said, the alcohol coming down here into a glass container. Really important that this does not get below any liquid lines. So for example, if you had it in here and it was touching the bottom, that's not good because you can get back feeding on it. So it's really quite important that you have it so that it can drip at a certain height into a container. You've also got the water coming in through here. This is the water coming out, and this is the sort of flow rate that we're looking for on it. It's really just not much more than a dribble, because this is then going to allow us to keep the heat of the actual condenser at the right sort of levels. So what we're going to do now is we're going to put this on and we're going to get the still running, and then we'll come back to you when we're getting near to boiling point, and we can then show you what we're going to do with it next. So I'm just going to put that on and I'll be back with you shortly. Okay, so after a lot of inactivity, you can see the thermometer is starting to rise. It's now 52, 54. It's going over our target of, really, we're looking for 50. So, oh yeah, now it's just starting to register 57, 57.6, 57.9, 58. It's really slowing down. I've done nothing to the water yet. I'm just letting it run for a little while. And at the same time, you can see we're starting to get alcohol dripping out of the tube into the base. We're going up to 61, 62, so we're now getting a little bit too high, and what I'm going to now do is I'm going to just increase my water flow very, very slightly. And it's now a little bit of the old trial and error. We're just trying to get something that works. But the thing to remember as well is once you've just adjusted your water, just give it a few seconds, because it takes a bit of time just to kick in and actually start to see the readings changing. At the moment we're still just a little bit too high, so we need to increase our water flow very slightly. Obviously if you've got the needle valve, it's much easier just controlling it on the needle valve. Again, just a little bit high. It's not starting to drop yet. 69, 69.3. I'm just going to try and drop it a little bit further again. Our target on here is between 50 and 65. At 50, we're going to produce the best quality alcohol. At 65, we're going to get the maximum speed. So it's trying to get the balance between the two. Maximum quality 50, maximum speed 65. So we're just starting to come down a little now, 64-ish. So again, just a little bit more on the old adjustment. Very, very slight margins we're playing with now. As you can see, it's starting to drop down. And it will probably take 5 minutes for us to actually just get somewhere near where we want to be in terms of the right speed, the right temperature, and everything else, the right flow rate of the alcohol coming out of the still. The boiler obviously is heating up to 100, so we're getting continual blow off here in terms of the vapours which are coming off into the column, up into the column, and then obviously converting back into alcohol, liquid alcohol, with the cooling of the water that goes on the column. As you can see now, we're 52.9, it's really slowing down, 52.6, 55, it's going much, much slower. We're really not far away from where we want to be in terms of our target. We don't really want it less than 50 though, so slow down, slow down. It's getting pretty good, isn't it? You can see it's really sort of going quite slowly now. We're at 50.2, 50.1, 50. Oh, I was hoping we were bang on 50, but we've dropped to 49.9. That'll be fine, we can still work at that. Oh, we're back up to 50. As you can see now, it's fluctuating between the two. We're really very close to our actual standard here. One thing to bear in mind as well, with this water flow, we're looking for constant water in the house. Now, it's great for me because I'm the only one here today, so it doesn't make any difference. I haven't got other taps running, I haven't got toilets flushing, I haven't got washing machines being used, I'm having people showers or baths or whatever. So I'm getting a nice constant. That's where the boxed water flow regulator will come in absolutely superbly, because it has a little chamber and that takes out of the equation all these little fluctuations that we're getting now. Similarly with the needle valve, you've got a really tight little big piece of metal that you can adjust, which will just like get it to very fine margins. But the way forward is obviously the water flow regulator. That's the best thing that you can get. But as you can see, we're 49.50, we're pretty much bang on here. We've got alcohol dripping through. As you can see, we've had quite a little bit come through already. You see in the bottom of there. Now, I know what you're going to say to me. Heads, tails, all the other things. Right. With the pure yeast, because it is so pure and because it is such a fantastic yeast, there is absolutely no need to discard your first 50 or 100 ml. Some people will, and I'm not knocking them for doing it, but from a safety point of view, there is absolutely no need. Some people still think there are a few off flavours in that, and it's worth getting rid. But with the pure yeast, I certainly don't discard the first 50 ml. If we were using the classic yeast, or if we were using the fast yeast or the 48 hour, we would discard the first 50 to 100 ml. So that's really quite important. As far as the T500, with the column, we don't get tails. Now this machine will keep running and will keep extracting the alcohol for as long as there is alcohol in that wash. If there's no alcohol left there, there'll be nothing dripping out, and you know you've collected all the alcohol you want. As a general rule, if you've done the pure yeast and you have used 7 bags of glucose powder, you're going to collect about 3.5 litres of 92-94% alcohol. If you use the classic yeast, where you're using 9 bags of glucose powder, you're going to collect somewhere between 4.2 and 4.5 litres of alcohol at 92 to 94%. So your yield, we always talk about yield. Yield is the amount of alcohol we get from a wash. The yield on the classic is obviously far better. What's the difference between the two yeasts? Well, we would use the pure yeast if we're trying to produce the purest, cleanest tasting alcohol. So for example, if you are making white spirit, gin, Bacardi, white rum, we would always use the pure yeast. If you're making brown spirit or you're making liqueurs and you're going for optimum volume and optimum yield from one wash, then use the classic. Now with the classic yeast, it does give off some off flavours, and some of the off flavours on the classic yeast actually enhance the product when you're doing brown spirit. So whiskey, dark rum, brandy, all those ones, they're great for the darker spirit. So those ones work really well with the classic yeast. And as I say, from each wash, you're going to get 4.5 litres approximately of 92%. How long is it all going to take? Well, it took about 45 minutes for that boiler to heat up and to get ready where we're actually starting to drip alcohol. If we're running at around the 50, and again, Al, we just come back in here, you can see with 50.5, 50.6, we're around the very best target for the actual best quality alcohol that we're looking for. So at that, we're looking probably at around 3.5 to 4 hours. If we increase the temperature to nearer 65, we're probably going to get it to run through around 3 hours. So again, it depends on where you want to be with it. Do you want quality, or do you want speed, or do you want something in between the two? So as you can see, all the alcohol's dripping through very nicely. We're very pleased with the way things are going, and all we can do now is just leave it and let it run, and we'll come back to you when we're finished. So let's just run through a few of the bits again. The column at the top, it's getting quite warm, quite hot all round. Obviously we've got the vapours going up, we've got the saddles all working good, and the alcohol's coming out beautiful. If you get problems with boiling, it's nearly always the thermometer. The temperature gauge is in too far. That is the biggest problem that we get with the T500. Everything else is pretty small by comparison. But have a look on the site, look at the guides, and look at all the various other things we do. I think we're about probably 2 hours off, so I'll be back in 2 hours when we're actually finished, and we can talk a little bit more then. Okay, so we've now completed our first 25 litre batch of alcohol. We've got about 3.5 litres here. It's 92-94% strong, that's ABV. So we now need to decide what we're going to do. Well, firstly, I would recommend that we dilute this down to 40% ABV by adding some water to it. Yes, the quality of the water is important, so get some nice quality water. I tend to use stuff that I've just run through the Brita filter, just add that to it. I don't go berserk and have distilled water or anything like that. I just use the sort of filtered water that we've got here. So that will then take it down to about 40%. That's the strength I like to use. I like to have all my alcohol at around 40% because all the flavourings that I use ask for alcohol at 40%. So I'll keep a load of bulk alcohol and then I just mix it up as and when I need it. It's also a lot easier to keep it like this. You know, it's not taking up as much space when you've got it like this. The alcohol that's come through though, as I said, basically you've got vodka. This is ethanol, and it will benefit by treatment. By treatment, we're saying it needs to be run through carbon. Now please have a look at the Spiritworks carbon filter, and also the Still Spirits do an EZ filter. We honestly believe that the carbon filter, the Spiritworks carbon filter, will add a lot more quality to it. We like the granular carbon. We like it because it's more economical to use, and it seems to take out a lot more of the impurities in the actual alcohol. But it is important to understand the need to treat it with carbon. If you look at some of the commercial vodkas which are available, the way they differ is by the quality of the carbon treatment after they've been distilled. There's so many machines which are the same, but how is Absolute different from Smirnoff and different from all the others? It's because of the carbon treatment. we have genuinely gone for the very best carbon that we can actually buy to improve the quality of the alcohol. If we're looking at cost, we've got 3.5 litres roughly of 90-92%. That's going to give us about 7 litres, just over 7 litres. 7 litres, it's going to cost you around £1, £1.20 a litre to produce that. Once you add your flavourings to it, then your flavourings will increase it slightly. Now, obviously once you've treated it with the carbon, you are then able to do what you want. It might be that you want to do botanicals, and I'll be honest, with the botanicals, we're going to do a separate video on those, so have a look at that for people who want to make it gin from the botanicals. Majority of people though will use the flavours, and these flavours, each one, they come in a little box, each one does 3 times 75 cl. Each sachet will do 1.125 litres. The 1.125 litres is 1 full bottle and 1 half-size bottle. So when we put the 2 together, we'll end up with 3 75 cl bottles. Now, all the flavourings which are available, there's a massive range. I've just brought a couple along here. We've got brandy, we've got whiskey, we've got gin. I've just brought a few with me, but have a look again on the website. We've got all the different flavourings that we can do. The classic ones tend to be the best, although we've obviously got the top shelf ones, which a lot of people love. So again, all down to your own personal taste. You can do what you want, but this is real fun. This is really good. It's a great way of producing really safe, top quality alcohol at home for your own use. So I hope you enjoy it, and I hope you'll get a lot of fun out of your T500. They're brilliant machines and very, very commercial. Thank you.